Hello, booktube. Books have always been a vital part of my life. I don't think that I would have got to my 8th decade without the comfort, escape, and knowledge that books provide. Since I was young, I read a variety of books, from fairy tales to, well, children's books, fairy tales, and then teenage books, which are now called young adult, and adult books, just regular fiction, even when I was very young. But I was always drawn to nonfiction, or specifically to self-improvement books, which is now called self-help books. Now, since I've been on booktube as a creator for 4 years, almost 4 years, I've noticed that self-help books have a bad rap. And oftentimes, maybe most of the time, for good reason. Especially since the internet came alive with what I call the snake oil salesmen, which were always around, by the way. But now almost everyone who has an internet can be swayed by the dude bros selling get-rich-quick schemes, or the always present get-skinny-rich-quick schemes, and also now health misinformation and information that I've been noticing. But despite all of the negativity and the cringeworthy books that I look back now on and I say, yeah, this was pretty bad, I've got some books for you that I think not only helped me personally, but helped millions of people around the world. Because even though nothing is new under the sun, there's still creativity that can be gleaned from these books in a different way, saying something in a different way, or having an experience that really touches people. So let's get to the books. The first book that I want to talk about is a famous one. It's by Viktor Frankl, and it's this one is a newly revised and enlarged Man's Search for Meaning, and it's a two-parter, which is not a good way of saying this, because the first part is his experience in concentration camps, and the second part is his new theory at that time called logotherapy. So the first part of the book, you can say, is tragic in a lot of ways. Here he is, a young psychiatrist who has this theory that he wrote down in a book, pages and pages, and he doesn't know where he's going. He thought it was a holding camp, and he has all these pages of text that he's like about to publish. And he's, even he feels a little bit, it's like a little humorous. Here he is on the line to go right or left. And he picks up pretty quick that this book, they take everything away from him. So that's not going to be a thing. So he thinks, I have to, on the spot, he says, I have to survive. And he is sent to the right, but his experience, of course, is what many concentration camp victims who are selected to survive right away are, and that is horror. As another book that I read, Here There Is No Why. So how does he survive this horrible, terrible experience? And that's what the book is about. So he does survive and goes on to write that book, probably a different book that he originally was going to write. But I want to say that during the time that he was in the concentration camp, he got through it by two things. His wife, the love of his life, I think he was a newlywed, thinking about her and the life that they would have if they survive. And also going over his book, chapter by chapter. So when he was doing work, when he was marching, whatever he was doing, he had a meaning, and that his meaning was to finish the book. But of course it's much more than that. The book is much more than that. And I wrote down a few very meaningful quotes about the meaning of the book. So man's search for meaning. The meaning, what is it? What do we need? Why do we need to have meaning to survive? So one thing he said that's a famous quote is, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. That quote helped me so many times, because we are all unable to change certain situations in our lives. But what do we do? What do we do? How do we handle that? Sometimes we don't handle it very well. And I've been in that situation. But if we go down deep, and if I look at the situations that have been the most horrific in my life, and I had to dig down deep and search for a way to survive that, at least emotionally. And so what he says is, the one thing you can't take away from me is the way I choose to respond to what you do to me. The last of one's freedom is to choose one's attitude in a given circumstance. And so he thought about his wife a lot, and my mind still clung to the image of my wife. A thought crossed my mind. I didn't even know if she was alive. I knew only one thing, which I have learned well by now. Love goes far beyond the physical person of the beloved. It finds its deepest meaning in its spiritual being, his inner self. And he says that love is the ultimate and highest goal to which man and woman, I put women, can aspire. Then I grasp the meaning of the greatest secret that human poetry and human thought and belief have to impart. The salvation of man is through love and in love. Just those three things in the book, really helped me through my life since I read the book, of course. And so my first book, self-improvement, you can call it self-actualization, is Man's Search for Meaning. Okay. I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Marilyn Maya. Please subscribe to my channel and press the like button if you're so inclined. I really would appreciate that. Okay, second book. The second book is a book that I would not have ordinarily thought was a book for me. And that's Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth, Awakening to Your Life's Purpose. Now let me explain. I did not read The Power of Now. I thought it was, for me, too woo-woo, and maybe Buddhism, I didn't know, maybe meditating, which I've never been able to really do successfully. But as I read it, I really began to appreciate this author for his kindness, number one. Okay, so what is the book about? So Eckhart Tolle describes and shows readers how to awaken to a new state of consciousness and follow the path to a truly fulfilling existence. And transcending the human ego is pivotal to individual happiness, he says, and can bring an end to global suffering. That's good. But that's not why this book is important to me. And let me tell you why. Because I think that getting rid of the ego which is self-love in some ways. It can get too much to the other way, which is self-loathing. So I don't know if we should get rid totally of the ego, but that's just my opinion. And so some of the books cancel out some of the other books. But he pointed out toward the end of the book something called the pain body, and how some people, like me, have a hard time living in the now. And he calls that the pain of generational trauma sometimes. And I really related to that. I related to generational trauma. So I thought that part of the book really resonated with me and made me want to read the book again. So if you've read this book, let me know what you thought of it. So I really like this author. He's kind. He explains things well. I don't totally agree with everything he says, but that's okay. We can read self-help books and still keep our own opinion about what to keep and what to throw away. Okay, so what's the third book? Which is similar. And this book was written in 1994. I have the what do they call the anniversary edition, and it's sort of two books in one. It's The Artist's Way, A Spiritual Path to Higher Creativity. And it's also, she's a baby boomer, so it's also a lot of find your spiritual path and live. It's a book that I don't think that I agree with 100%. It's also a little religious, and she believes that the main creativity is not only, but I guess believing in a higher power, which I believe in, but it's kind of Christian. So if it's not really pounded at you. So if you're not into religion, I think you can still get a lot out of this book. I read this book because I was writing a book, and I needed to unleash my creative side. And this book helped me do that. So, what is this book about? So, she believes that serious art is created from serious play. And progress, not perfection, is what we should be asking of ourselves. But it's a program. And that's something you can, and a lot of people said it's a 12-week program. And a lot of people couldn't get through the whole 12 weeks, and I couldn't either. But there are nuggets in this book that was very relevant to me. So let me tell you a little bit about that. So this book contains a few things that you have to do during that 12-week period. And one is morning pages. In fact, the second book is a whole book. It's a journal, The Artist's Way Morning Pages Journal, a companion volume to The Artist's Way. And she asks certain questions. So what are morning pages? She believes basically you wake up in the morning, which I don't wake up very early in the morning anyway, but you wake up in the morning and you write whatever is on your mind. It could be a dream. It could be just writing. Whatever comes out. Automatic writing. And that's supposed to unleash your spiritual side. And I know a lot of authors and artists who've done this and were able, it's almost like NaNoWriMo, where you're given some tools to be able to do something that you want to do, that creatively, that opens up your mind and your heart creatively. And I found that the most helpful. Also, she has something which is have a day where you're just playing creatively. Doesn't matter, go to an art museum, just do something creative. That's harder when you have 4 children, as I did in 1994, telling you need to do this and go here, go there. But it's a good concept. And like I said, you can get something out of a book that maybe not the whole book, but if you can get something, and I did write the book, so I do recommend this book, even though it does say a spiritual path to higher creativity. And I never thought that some of the books that would affect me the most, self-help, self-actualization books, were spiritual books, and not spiritual in the way that I would think that would touch me, because I do read religious books, and that's something separate. So I guess it's not that different. But anyway, I think that any person, creative or not, we're all creative. We're born with that creativity. So I do think that many people will get something out of this book, even though it's dated, even with the anniversary edition. And yeah, so tell me if you've read this book. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Do you think it's not a good self-help book, not a good self-improvement book? Let me know. The last book that I want to talk about is a book that kind of contradicts the Eckhart Tolle book. And that is, and I talked about this in the beginning when I first started booktube, and it's called UnWorthy, How to Stop Hating Yourself by Anneli Rufus. And she's the author of Party of One and Stuck. And I haven't read those books yet, but I want to. So I like this quote about the book. It says, Anneli Rufus illuminates a problem many have witnessed but few have publicly acknowledged. The world is full of good, honest, hardworking people who nevertheless hate themselves. It is also full of cruel and petty scoundrels with sky-high self-regard. Their ego is all the way up. Unlike most books on self-esteem, written from the lofty perches of confident experts, UnWorthy tackles the problem of self-loathing from an insider's perspective. As Rufus unflinchingly tells her own story, elegantly weaving it with current research, she provides a light to guide fellow sufferers out of the dark. It's a memoir, but it's also a self-help book. But what really got me, and probably many other people won't get, is that her mother was very similar to my mother. And I think there was a lot of generational trauma going on in that household, and why she became the way she was or is. And she did come out of it. She says she's not completely healed. Maybe she is now. This book was written, let me see when, so this says, in an age when snapping selfies has become an international pastime, it seems that wherever we turn, we're being escorted to love ourselves. Yet for many, this isn't so easy. I really agree with that. So, 2014, it was written. So, yeah, there's a delicate balance, right? Of loving yourself too much, having too much of an ego, and also of not loving yourself enough. So, yeah, I wanted to talk about that a little bit, because I think that we need to take these self-help books with a couple of grains of salt, no matter how good they are, because they're not going to work for everyone. But if we can glean something positive from these books, and I think all of these books that I talked about are worthy of being in my library at least, and I'm sure they're in a lot of other libraries. But we have to pick and choose from any book, any self-help book that we choose to read, because there's going to be things that resonate with us and things that we say, no, this is not for me. And that's okay. So anyway, this is the end of that video of self-help or self-improvement books that actually work. At least they work for me. So thank you so much for watching. Like I said, please like this video. I appreciate it. And I'll see you in another video very soon. Aloha.